You can tell if a watermelon is worth carrying home before you ever cut it open. You do not need a knife. You do not need a store clerk. You do not need to knock on 10 melons like you are guessing at a locked door. And you do not need luck. You only need to know what to look at. My name is Eli. I grew up around people who did not like wasting money on pretty fruit that turned out pale, watery, and disappointing in the middle. When a family brings home a watermelon, especially in hot weather, they are not bringing home decoration. They are bringing home expectation. They want that deep red center. They want that crisp snap. They want sweetness that runs down your wrist when you cut into it. And if they are paying good money for one heavy melon, they want to know they chose well. That is why old growers never looked at a watermelon the way most modern shoppers do. Most people today pick a melon the same way they pick a pillow or a lamp. They look at the size. They glance at the color. They choose the cleanest one. Sometimes they thump it because they saw somebody do that once. Then they take it home and hope for the best. And half the time hope is all they had. But a watermelon tells on itself from the outside. That is what this video is about. I am going to walk you through the Amish points we were taught to notice. The little signs on the outside of a watermelon that tell you whether it likely ripened slow, sweet, and full on the vine, or whether it came off too soon, grew watery, or simply never reached its best. And stay with me, because right around the middle I am going to show you the one sign many people ignore, but the old-timers trusted most when they wanted a sweet one. Now let us begin with the most honest part of the whole melon. Turn it over and look at the field spot. Some people call it the ground spot. It is that pale patch where the watermelon sat on the earth while it ripened in the sun. That one spot tells a story, because it shows how long the melon stayed where it belonged. If that field spot is almost white, or very pale, that usually means the melon may have been picked before it finished developing fully. It did not spend enough time resting and sweetening where it grew. But if that field spot is creamy yellow, buttery yellow, or even a warm, deeper yellow, that is a much better sign. That tells you the melon sat there longer. It had time. And with fruit, time matters. Sweetness is not rushed. That is the first point. Now here is where people go wrong. They find one nice yellow spot, and they stop there. But one sign alone should never decide the whole thing. A good melon is read like a page, not like one letter. So let me show you the next point. Look at the shape. A watermelon should look even, balanced, and properly formed for its variety. If one side looks collapsed, lumpy, strange, pinched, or oddly irregular, that can be a warning sign. It may have grown unevenly, taken in water inconsistently, or had stress while developing. A good melon often looks symmetrical. It looks settled. It looks finished, like it knew what it was becoming from the beginning. That does not mean every perfect watermelon is mathematically round or perfectly oval. Different varieties have different forms. What you are looking for is not uniformity like factory plastic. You are looking for natural balance, no obvious dents, no strange flattening, no severe deformity. When fruit grows well, it usually carries itself well. Now the third point is one that shoppers underestimate because they are in a hurry. Pick it up, actually lift it. A ripe, juicy watermelon should feel heavier than it looks. Water is weight, and a melon full of developed flesh and moisture often surprises you in the hand. If two melons are close in size, and one feels noticeably heavier, that heavier one often has the advantage. This is one of the simplest tests in the world, and people still skip it. They will stand there looking at stripes and shine and stickers, but they will not do the one thing their own hand can tell them immediately. Heft matters. A watermelon that feels light for its size can be disappointing inside. Not always, but often enough that the test is worth doing every single time. Now let us talk about sound, because this is the point people imitate without understanding. Yes, you can tap or thump a watermelon, but you must know what you are listening for. You are not trying to hear a magic noise. You are trying to compare fullness and maturity. A good ripe watermelon often gives a deeper, fuller, more hollow sound. Not dead, not flat, not sharp like knocking on dense wood. There is a lower note to it, a bit of depth, a bit of open body. An underripe or poor quality melon may sound tighter, higher, or duller, but sound alone is a weak judge if you have no comparison. That is why experienced pickers use sound as one witness, not the whole jury. If you are at a stand with many melons, tap several. Once you hear the differences across a group, your ear becomes more useful. But never let sound overrule everything else you can plainly see. Now I want to show you a point that many people either laugh at or misunderstand completely. Look for webbing. Some melons have rough brown web-like markings on the outside. Not rot, not damage deep into the flesh. Surface webbing. Many growers and old fruit pickers see that as a strong sign that the fruit developed well and likely has better sweetness. Because heavier pollination often leads to stronger fruit development. And while no one mark is a 100% guarantee, a melon with healthy webbing, along with a good field spot, good weight, and proper shape, often turns out far better than the cleanest-looking, prettiest melon in the pile. That is one of the mistakes modern shoppers make. They buy with their eyes the way they buy polished furniture. They choose the cleanest, smoothest, most cosmetic-looking fruit. But nature does not always signal sweetness through beauty. Sometimes the best fruit looks like it lived a little. And that is true in gardens, and sometimes in people too. Now let us talk about the rind. A good watermelon often has a slightly duller finish rather than a shiny, slick, glassy one. Too much shine can sometimes mean it was picked too early. As the fruit matures, the outside often loses some of that youthful gloss. You are not searching for a dry, sickly, dead look. You are searching for a mature look, a finish that feels settled rather than flashy. The stores often train your eye toward brightness and polish, but ripeness is not always glossy. That brings me to another important point. Firmness. Press on the rind, not hard enough to bruise it, but enough to feel whether the skin is sound and resilient. A good watermelon should feel firm and solid. If there are soft spots, damaged areas, or places that feel weak, that is a warning sign. Softness can mean bruising, breakdown, or poor handling. The outside should feel confident, not mushy, not collapsing, not tired. Now, if you are lucky enough to buy from a farm stand where some stem or tendril remains, there is another clue. A dried tendril near where the fruit attached can be a good sign of maturity. If that little curling piece is dried and brown rather than fresh green, it can suggest the melon had more time to ripen before harvest. But do not worry if your supermarket melon has no vine attached. Most shoppers never get to use this clue, which is why the other outside points matter so much more. Now let me give you the one angle that saves people the most disappointment. Do not choose a watermelon only by size. Bigger is not always sweeter. A giant melon catches the eye. It feels like value. It feels like abundance. But large size alone tells you almost nothing about flavor. In fact, many people repeatedly go wrong because they assume the biggest one in the bin must be the best deal. That is shopping with appetite, not judgment. A medium, heavy, well-shaped watermelon with a deep yellow field spot and good webbing will often beat a giant showpiece that was picked at the wrong time. Remember this: sweetness and size are not twins. Now some of you are saying, all right, but if I am standing in a grocery store with 30 watermelons in front of me, what order should I check these in? Good question. Here is the exact order I recommend. First, turn the melon and check the field spot. Second, scan the shape for balance. Third, lift it and compare the weight. Fourth, inspect the rind for maturity and webbing. Fifth, tap for sound only after the first four have already narrowed the choices. That order saves time and saves mistakes. If the field spot is poor and the shape is questionable, I do not care how beautiful the stripes are. Put it back. If the field spot is strong, the shape is even, and the melon feels heavy, now you are getting somewhere. This is how people make fruit selection easier. Not by memorizing 50 tricks, but by learning a few strong filters and using them in the same order every time. Now let us speak plainly about why so many people keep failing with watermelon. Because they buy against pressure. They are hot. They are rushed. Their cart is already full. They have children waiting. They grab the first decent one they see and hope summer will be kind. But a watermelon punishes hurry. It rewards observation. The funny thing is, the difference between a memorable watermelon and a forgettable one is often only 10 or 15 extra seconds of attention. That is all. Now, if you grow your own, the conversation becomes even better, because then you can use both the fruit and the vine to judge readiness. If you are in your own patch, watch the tendril nearest the fruit. When that tendril dries down, that is often one of the strongest visual signs the melon is close or ready, depending on the variety and weather. Look also at the field spot, the rind finish, and the fruit's full developed size. And this is important for home growers. Stop watering too heavily right before harvest if your goal is concentrated flavor. Too much late watering can sometimes leave you with a more diluted result. A melon wants fullness, yes, but it also wants balance. A grower learns quickly that a sweet watermelon is not an accident. It is timing. That is why older growers watched patches slowly. They did not just count days, they read the plants, and that is what most shoppers today have lost. Not intelligence, not ability, just the habit of reading produce as if it has something to say. Now I want to touch on one more visual point that helps at roadside stands and open bins. Look at the overall contrast and maturity of color. Depending on variety, ripe watermelons often show clear, settled color patterns rather than washed-out uncertainty. The stripes usually look defined. The rind does not look immature or confused. Again, this is not a standalone test, but when a mature-looking rind, a good field spot, and proper heft all come together, the chances improve in your favor. What you want is agreement. You are not looking for one lucky sign. You are looking for several signs telling the same story. That is how experienced people choose almost everything worthwhile. Now let me tell you what not to do. Do not let a price sticker cover the field spot without checking underneath if you can. Do not choose by the prettiest top side only. Do not assume every organic label means every melon is excellent. Do not trust an employee who says, "They're all sweet today," and do not let one weak tap convince you that you have suddenly become an expert. A watermelon can be read, but it should be read honestly. Now here is the middle lesson I promised you, the one many old pickers trusted most when all else looked close. When in doubt between two melons, choose the one with the better field spot and the heavier feel. Those two together save more mistakes than almost any other pair of signals. Why? Because the field spot speaks to time on the ground, and the weight speaks to developed fullness inside. Time and fullness are powerful allies. If I had to teach a child only 2 points and send him to the pile, those would likely be the 2 I would choose first. After that, use webbing and shape to strengthen the decision. Now some people will ask, can these signs guarantee a perfect watermelon every single time? No. Nature is not a machine. Fruit is still fruit. Weather changes things. Variety changes things. Harvest handling changes things. No outside method can promise certainty the way cutting it open can. But that is not the real question. The real question is this: can these points dramatically improve your chances compared with random guessing? Absolutely. That is why they have lasted. People do not pass down useless observations for generations. They pass down what works often enough to matter. And that is exactly what this knowledge is. Not magic, but usable wisdom. There is also something satisfying about buying fruit with your own judgment instead of helpless hope. You stop feeling like you are gambling in the produce section. You begin to feel like you know what you are doing. And most families need more of that feeling, not less. We have become too dependent on labels, stickers, branding, and sales language. Somewhere along the way, many people stopped trusting their eyes, their hands, and the patience. But watermelons were being chosen long before supermarket signage started pretending to educate people. The fruit already gives signs. You just have to notice them. So let me give you the Amish points once more, plain and in order. Look for a creamy yellow field spot, not a white one. Choose an even, balanced shape. Pick the melon up and favor the one that feels heavier for its size. Notice webbing and signs of developed growth. Prefer a mature, slightly duller rind over one that looks too glossy and young. Check for firmness and avoid soft spots or damaged patches. Use sound as a supporting clue, not the main decision maker. If there is a tendril attached, a dried one is better than a green one, and never choose by size alone. That is the list. Simple enough to use this afternoon. Now here is what I want you to do the next time you are standing in front of a watermelon bin. Do not grab the first big one. Do not let the store rush you. Pick up 3. Turn them over. Read the bottoms. Compare the weight. Look at the webbing. Check the shape. Then make your choice with intention. You will not get every melon perfect for the rest of your life, but you will get more of them right. And the more often you use the method, the better your eye becomes. That is how practical knowledge works. It gets sharper in the using. And once you start seeing these signs, you cannot really unsee them. The produce aisle becomes less random. You begin noticing why one family keeps cutting into bright red sweetness, while another family keeps ending up with pale disappointment on a picnic table. It was not luck. It was attention. That is what these points really teach. Not just how to buy a watermelon, but how to stop letting good choices hide in plain sight. So, if you are tired of bringing home melons that look beautiful outside and watery inside, use these points. Let the fruit tell you what it is before you ever cut it. Because a watermelon always leaves clues, and the people who know how to read those clues eat better all summer long. Next time you go shopping, slow down for 10 seconds. Look at the bottom, feel the weight, trust the signs, and bring home the one that earned its place in your cart. That is how you pick fresh, juicy watermelons every time.